This podcast, Strange, Rare, and Peculiar, is for kind of those in the know about homeopathy, deepening your knowledge, bringing you more information about what you need to know and maybe what you can leave aside about homeopathy.
Homeo what?
Homeo what? We thought about having some guests, some people to talk with on the podcast. Of course, you were the first people that we wanted to have on to talk with. And the hard thing is there are too many topics. So before we get started on any of the topics, though, for the maybe possibly two people in the world of homeopathy that don't know who you are, I think it's about time we introduce you. So Jeremy Sherr and Camilla Sherr. First of all, just dear friends, Jeremy, you as a teacher and a mentor have just meant the world. Camilla, you inspire me every stinking day. So it's for me this is a real treat. So Jeremy, you've taught for what, 37 years? Something like this?
No, it will be 40 now.
40 years?
Sad to say. Yeah. Because I started teaching I actually started teaching in the first year as a student, which was 1980. And that was due to Misha Norland, who was my teacher at the time. And then we used to go in the evening to his house where he would give a talk kind of on the weekends. And he said to me, well, why don't you do a lecture tomorrow? This was in my third month in school on material, on APAS. I don't remember if it was his suggestion or my suggestion. So I went home. I got home at like 10 or 11 at night, and I stayed awake all night preparing this lecture on APAS, which was very comprehensive at the time, and people loved it. So that's when, I started teaching, thanks to Misha then. And then I actually taught at Misha's school when I was, I think, in the third year again, and various homeopathic schools. So that was 1980. So I guess it's been 43 years I'm teaching.
Wow.
And seeing I'm now only 59, then I started quite early, it seems.
As we've discovered, time is not linear.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. We were actually just talking about that before you came on. So, and how many Dynamis courses? Well, and Camilla, you have Dynamis courses too. So how many are there total?
I lost count. I was counting till a certain time, but I reckon there are around 40, which sounds strange because I only started Dynamis in 1987. But there were years when I was doing 5 consecutively. Usually I was doing 3 consecutively. And even now I've just finished 3 in one go. So it's around 40, and Camilla has done 2 in Finland, I think.
Wow. That's a lot. And approving with everyone, right?
Yeah, approving with everyone, which means I've got, 40-something Hanummanian, full Hanummanian provings under my belt, because there were some I did outside of Dynamis as well. Extra ones. So yeah, I lost count, but it's over the 40.
That's amazing. I mean, I think about this with teaching, with now that we've been just, teaching every year, just going through the curriculum over and over, and the potentizing that comes from it. It's, I don't know, there's something about it that's really magical. Right? You start
the teaching does it.
Yeah.
The teaching is what potentizes you and gives you wisdom and learning, and takes it so much deeper. I remember when I something 83, and I taught paragraph 1 of the organon, which was unheard of then because you didn't teach the organon. I remember in my first year, Robert Davidson said, okay, your homework is to read paragraph 1 to paragraph 35 of the organon. And I couldn't understand why it kind of stopped in the middle of a subject. He threw out numbers randomly because, you didn't study the organ. And then, so I taught paragraph 1 for 10 whole minutes, which I thought was amazing. But, now I could teach it for 3 weeks, which I try not to do. It's like, and it develops it. You learn something. I learned something. Every paragraph I teach, every time I teach a remedy, I learn about it, or a paragraph and an idea or a case. That's the way it goes. So best way to learn.
I totally agree. Now, I have what might appear to be a non sequitur, but in my mind is a total connection, because I'm obsessed with Camilla's agro-homeopathy, and I'm also having such a hard time getting my brain to think about homeopathy through the plant world. And so there are two things. One is I need to know more about Camilla's parents' crabapple tree that now makes apples, and how you got to Lacanine. I mean, like, I can get there through the story, but I just need to know how the conversation between the two of you and where that came from. That's number one. And then Al has a very.
And I want to know why you're so into where I come from. Agri-Homeopathy means angry homeopathy, and I just want to understand how you ended up in that corner.
Because I'm really a Camilla. I'm a really angry person, and that's why I do aggravating things.
Oh, okay.
But the name, actually, I hate the word agro-homeopathy, so I changed it to Agri-Homeopathy, because to me that's nicer.
Yeah,
agriculture, agri-homeopathy, it makes sense. Agro, it's already bad enough to be like homopath. So why be also an agropath? Everything just like, why have these connotations that are unnecessary? I don't get it. So so agri-homeopathy it is. And as for my mom's apple tree, that was pure Jeremy Sherr genius. I was on our summer island. Jeremy was in Tanzania, and my mother, in her typical style, phones me and she's like, "Save the tree now. Like, do it now. It's got these disgusting maggots all over it. It's so gross." And it's one of those, it's not just a regular caterpillar, it's something called an ermine moth, which it eats up the whole tree. It eats up all the leaves, and it leaves like a Halloween skeleton that is covered in white. It looks like a white spider web all over it. Oh. It secretes this disgusting, very, very thick, tenacious white, like a web. And it honestly, it looks, if you Google it, it looks horrible. And once it starts, there's no stopping. So in agriculture, they say that maybe if you squirt the tree with a very powerful water jet, that you basically squirt them out and, somehow, break down that disgusting web thing. But they all say nothing works. But of course, trees and all plants have an immune system, and they know how to make themselves undesirable. So either they taste bitter or they smell disgusting or something like that. They have their own way of doing this. So Jeremy, I sent these absolutely disgusting pictures to Jeremy. And basically the maggots are all around the tree. So he just took the rubric, delusion, snakes in and around her. And of course it's white, like the lax and lacaninum, and that disgusting feeling, absolutely gross. And you can imagine that the tree would feel totally grossed out. And this is lacaninum. And then my mom had the Dynamis pack, the kit with tons of remedies in 200C. So she just diluted it in half a cup of water, poured it to the roots, around the trunk, came back 4 days later, and there was not a sign of a maggot. They'd gone somewhere else. So that was amazing. And then when the apples actually developed, they were edible. for the first time ever, they were red and not just like hard green ones. They were red and juicy and tasty. So everybody thought that it was an ornamental, but it wasn't. It was only underperforming. So that was total brilliance. But that is difficult to teach to any farmer, for example, which is why I've made these combination remedies for various situations in the farms and gardens, because you can't. Those I made for Tanzania, for the coffee farmer that I was working with, and then for other farmers who can almost not read. So like, how can they differentiate between even belladonna and arsenical? Like they can't.
That experience is the same experience that I've come across so many times in my traveling and trips and teaching in New Zealand. You're dealing with dairy farmers that are them, it's like, without disparagement, they are fairly basic and they're interested in milk yield, and that's about it. And so you've got to give them something that's got number 1 on it, or number 2 on it, or number 3 on it. And it doesn't matter that it's a combo. Just give number 2 now. Boom. And then they're on board. It's fantastic.
Well, that is talking about New Zealand. That's a Tunica model. I think you know Tunica, probably seeing your
Tunica. That's
Kiwi.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that should be emulated all over. Yeah.
Folks, you don't know what we're talking about. Tunica is this Dutch Kiwi, force of nature. She drives like dangerously. I'm sure she wouldn't mind me saying that. I found myself for the first time in my life terrified to be in the passenger seat. But she ran a monster business dealing with dairy farmers and just simple homeopathy. She developed a number of books and booklets that were really heavily coated in plastic, because they would hang up on the hook outside the dairy farm in the rain, and just build a kick-ass business. It was amazing.
It was marvelous.
She visited us here in Tanzania. She was here for 3 months. Yeah. So
twice.
And she
I asked.
Yeah, she was here twice. True. And I asked her, I said, what do you charge? So she said $60. So I said, well, they phone your helpline and you say, okay, the cow lost its calf, it died, and you send them Ignatia, and they pay $60. But why wouldn't they just go and buy Ignatia from a pharmacy for $20? And she said, well, because they phone us and we give them that expertise of what to give, because you can't always you can what's it called, like standardize it in many instances and situations, but then sometimes you just need to know what you've got to give, and then she's got that support line, and I think that's a really brilliant model.
I love that. I think we should work some magic right now with our we have aphids.
Aphids. I got an infestation of aphids up the wazoo in the hoop house that we tend to use in the shoulder seasons just to keep the growing for our large quantities of kale and broccoli and cauliflower, and we're infested with aphids.
So they're on kale and cabbage and stuff like that.
Yeah, all the cruciferous vegetables.
Yeah. Okay. So I've had my best experience with aphids is with Simicifuga, but that's on roses, and I'm not sure that it works on those ones, because my neighbor here in Tanzania tried the Simicifuga on exactly. I think there were cabbages and kale and something like that. And the Simicifuga did nothing. And then she took the aphids and she potentized the aphids. She sprayed that, and that worked. And that's one approach, it's an isopathic approach, of course. And that's what they do a lot in Brazil on the permaculture farms. So that's something that you can do, and that's really effective. this
also,
approach.
I mean, I must admit, as a kind of more of a gentleman farmer, like I haven't got 3 hours to triturate, because at the end of the day, you know, I just do lazy aphid collection, put it in alcohol, leave it, shake it up, spray, and it's just not that 3 hour grinding and scraping and aphorism 270 and standing on one leg. And
well, when they are, look, the grinding and scraping is not so necessary when it's aphids that are really squashy. You know, it's more, you need to do that with minerals, but with these squishy, you don't need that much. So you don't have to do it with the lactose. You can just do it with liquid. And then the banging, you don't have to do it to 1 to 100. You can make an X potency or D potency and do it 1 to 10. So you have less, and do a D6 or D12. That doesn't take so many hours. And plus, haven't you got students to do that?
No, our students.
This is the problem with online school.
and we run an online school, so our students are peppered all over the world, and so, you know, we don't have
I know.
Just Al.
Yeah. But the challenge with this agri-homeopathy, I mean, I'm not the expert, because, you know, I can hardly tell a geranium from a rose. So, you know, I'm non-agricultural. But you see, on one hand, you've got the Tunica model, which I think is amazing, just to send out quantities to farmers in 1, 2, 3. And I think this is what is going to, you know, help homeopathy, you know, to thrive, because they don't care. That's what Tunica used to say. They don't care what the government says, you know, if it's no good or anything like that. They just do what works. And you know, but on the higher level, when you get to those problems like the apple tree or other experiences we had, that, you know, it's not an automatic thing. Now, what Camilla and I are doing that is different from what's done before is treating plants like humans, using the repertory and using symptoms, which is a whole new way, because all those people doing agro-homeopathy around the world are much more botanical, scientific-based, DNA-based, mineral-based, whatever. And, you know, we are experimenting, and it's very new. We're saying, okay, the tip of the leaf is brown, so let's take the brown tip of the tongue, you know, and stuff like that. And actually, it's working far beyond what our expectations were in the beginning, but it's a very evolving science that needs to be experimented with. Another thing that Camilla's just starting to experiment with is the fungi, because, you know, we both very excited about the whole fungi, and I'm sure you've read the Sheldrake book and seen the movie Amazing Fungi and all that. So, you know, now Camilla's, we've ordered from Helios all the fungi remedies, because what turns out from those books, like from the Sheldrake book, is that if let's say your strawberries have one fungi, they will not taste good, and another fungi, they will taste good. Or trees have a certain fungi and they will grow much better than other. So the whole fungi experience of what's motoring the growth and the taste and the alkaloids and everything else from underneath is a new thing which we need to explore. So it's in its infancy, but it's wonderful to see how it's taking off and growing.
Wow. I love that. It's really, I as you're talking about this, I have so many things going through my head. I think, you know, the way that we're starting to just tap into the idea of the fungi and, you know, all of the questions that are happening around bacteria and around, you know, viruses and all that we don't know and all the assumptions that have been made in reductionistic science. You know, I think about, sorry, it's a little bit of a topic change, but that's kind of how we roll on this podcast. It's just a little freeform. But it's making me think about something in the human world that we're dealing with so much. And I wonder if you're seeing this in your practices as much with PANDAS, PANS and PANDAS. I think now they've gotten rid of one of them. I think now it's just PANDAS. Are you familiar with this? The pediatric acute neurological syndromes, where kids one day, out of nowhere, wake up with terrible, debilitating anxiety, food restrictions, ticks, lots of ticks and twitching and so forth. And so the medical world at first was, of course, no, it doesn't exist. And now, it's sort of coming in through the fringes of homeopathy. A lot of the naturopathic homeopaths have set up clinics here in the United States where they're doing all sorts of nonsense. Sorry to say, but it's really complicated because it's connected to strep, or at least there is a postulation that it's connected to strep or to antibiotics. And what's really interesting is that sometimes in a household, you'll see, that's Hildegard of Bingen, the cat. Anyway, you'll see that so the families, they're all strep positive, and some of them are symptomatic, some of them are not, but the child that is susceptible, if somebody gets strep, if somebody gets antibiotics, anything that throws off the microbiome sends these kids into the universe. And interestingly, they seem to be very much affected by chlorine. So if they go to a pool, the kids have these terrible exacerbations. And so the moms now bring potentized chlorine with them. And so I think that there's I have a number of cases. It's a little too complicated for this conversation. I'd love to have it otherwise. But I'm curious, this is not something that you're seeing routinely.
No.
Wow.
First time we've heard of it. We live in, I'm in Africa.
Yeah.
So we see African cases, which of course do not have that kind of stuff.
Right.
But even in Israel, which is, just north of New York, in terms of culture,
right.
I haven't really heard about it yet. How long has that been going on for now?
So I think the first time I started seeing the pattern, so I started hearing about the diagnosis maybe 5 years ago, and the pattern 5 to 10 years ago. But in the last 5 years, I'll have 2 cases a week easily. And our clinic, in our student population, I would say 25% of the parents have a kid. In the way we started to see the autism cases, we now see these PANS and PANDAS cases. And so anyway, what made me think about it is we started talking about the fungi, and I've been thinking a lot about, on the alchemy journey. So thinking about how in the ancient way of looking at everything, this as above, so below idea, and, we are made of star stuff. And I think we've sort of moved from this split, the up and down split, to the within without split. And this idea that the microbiome and, what we call the microbiome, but our capacity to be in harmony with the outer, forces, whether it be, whatever, the things we don't recognize and that we've been trying to kill since the 19th century, we actually need to live symbiotically with. And I wonder if now we're, however many generations of dead soil, we've ruined the terrain. And so I wonder if these kids are showing us this next phase of that, sort of evolution.
It smells pretty fuck to me.
Totally.
Even though it's the first time I hear about it, but your audience doesn't know what I mean by fuck. But the concept is, it's a kind of new way that disease, culture, consciousness is evolving, which is Fox is for F for fungi, A for AIDS, R for radiation, and C for cancer. It's kind of that kind of miasm, that kind of, idea where things are out of control and they suddenly go out of control. Smells a bit like radiation to me, mobile radiation maybe, or something new that's coming to the terrain. That's because of its abruptness, as you describe it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's strange. But I guess we have to wait until it hits us and investigate it.
I'll be curious to.
What's also interesting, like in terms of, like neurological diseases, and you're saying that their reactions and their neurological system is firing up and all that kind of stuff. here in Tanzania and all over Africa for that matter, hygiene is not what it is in the West.
Right.
So all this, what started like 10 years ago of, remember those adverts where you have Dettol wipes and they showed, wipe your toddler's, food tray with this totally toxic poison. And this very eminent neurologist here in Moshi, an Irish man, he said that the reason why there's hardly any MS or neurological problems in Tanzania is because we basically have dirt under our fingernails.
Right.
We have all of that is there. And I think when things are too hygienic, these fungi and bacteria and all these things that can be the links, especially in a nervous system where you need you have your nerve endings and you need the synapses, you need something to jump the link from one to the other, like with plants, with roots, for them to be able to absorb nutrient, they might need the mycelium from the fungi.
Yeah.
So if we kill all of those middle guys with, for example, too much, with too much cleanliness, for example, and all of this, it can't be. It might be one factor that is also adding to that.
So interesting.
Yeah, basically he said because the kids eat dirt, they eat earth, from the ground, they don't get neurological disease. And this is probably the top neurologist in Africa. So eat dirt, people.
Yeah.
And you know how they say, if we go back to agri-homeopathy a bit with the leap, they say that key to happiness is to have a garden and to get dirt under your fingernails, and it's healthy for you and it's good for your mental health. But maybe there's more to it than just smelling the roses. Maybe it's the actual environment and all of those microbes and that whole world that is interacting with us when we go out into the garden that we don't get in a sterile environment.
Totally agree. When my kids were little, they were dirtier than the other kids sometimes. And I would say that if kids don't eat their weight in dirt by the time they're 3, they're just not going to survive. So it was sort of, at that time, it was just an excuse for my mediocre parenting, but it turns out to be medically beneficial. So I like that. I was too busy doing homeopathy. No, that's terrible.
I think mediocre parenting is medically beneficial.
I had no choice.
Yeah. Well, it's people underparent and overparent a lot. Yeah.
You know what? Speaking of parenting, Jeremy, I want to know about this book. You've done something which is
there. It is.
There you go.
It's pretty important. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, I love the book. Have you finished reading it?
I haven't. I am savoring it, and all our students. So many have bought it, and their kids now. We have on our social. We have like this this app that our students use for talking to each other, and there's a whole thread about the book and kids passing it on and questions. Is it good for this age, for that age? And talking about the 13-year-old just finished it, and now the 11-year-old is reading it, and people are absolutely loving it. Yeah.
That's so great. That makes me happy, and that's what it's about.
Yeah.
Look, it's just every parent tells their babies bedtime stories mainly to get rid of them, and I kind of devised it so that it's short chapters when I was telling it to them, so that it's a 5-minute chapter, and that's it to bed. But I have this kind of morbid thing of leaving cliffhangers, which was counterproductive because they were no more. So my 2 elder ones, which are now in their 30s, I started off with in a kind of basic level, and then I just resumed when the other 2 girls were, 8 or something like that. And now every day I used to drive to my clinic here in Africa. And then on the way there and on the way back, I'd be working out, okay, what is the next, installment? So by the time I came home, I had the next installment ready. So that's how it worked out, and it evolved with time. And then they just loved it so much that I thought, okay, I'd love other people to enjoy it. And the first version was much longer, which I like. I wish I could publish the first version, because that has all kinds of, things I have to say in it. But I had to shorten it because of the genre, which is middle grade. But actually, it's not meant for middle grade. It's as you can see, it's meant for age 8 to 108. And I enjoyed it, the kids enjoyed it, and it just makes me happy that people read it. I'll never, it's not about earning money. I'll never earn anything from it, especially not the hours I've spent on it. But I'll tell you, after writing about 10 homeopathic books, it was so much fun to be a kid again. And to create this child world and to get into their head. And because I have 4 daughters, I kind of know how they think a little bit. I like to think, at least, that I know how they think. So so it was just fun, and I wanted to be fun, and I want people to enjoy it. That's what it brings me a lot of happiness, really, to see people enjoying it. And if enough people read it, I'll write the sequel, which is even more exciting. But you'll see, seeing you just in the early beginnings, you'll see that there'll come a stage where you won't be able to put it down anymore. So you better take a weekend off with the cat.
Yeah. If I wasn't headlong in my thesis, it would have been, because over the holidays when it arrived and I couldn't put it down, and then I'm back to work and it sits here. So, for those who are listening to this and not seeing what we're showing, it's called Beryl and Carol, The Noble Adventures of Beryl and Carol. And so much fun.
But, the thing is, I embedded a lot of little homeopathic stuff in it. And I actually made a homeopathic competition, which not a lot of people are doing yet. But the idea is that inside are, other than mentions of homeopathy, which I tried to keep subtle for the Gen Pop, but, there's all kinds of homeopathic remedy, like, you'll find there chelidonium or other stuff, And then there are little homeopathic pictures in it, that where I don't say what the remedy is, but there's a certain situation where I'm embedding a homeopathic picture. And then there are a few famous homeopaths, both past and present, that feature in there, and a few skeptics as well. So, your challenge is to identify who is who and what is what. But the real nature of, I understood with time that this is a homeopathic book. And the reason is like this. From the beginning, these 2 girls are faced with choices. There's all the time there are forks across the road. And with every chapter, there's 1 or 2 forks where they can say left, right, left, right, left, right. And they start off as 2 miserable, bullied, lack of confidence, lost 2 girls. And by every time taking the right choice, which is the difficult choice, they gain nobility as they go along. And they gain homeopathicity, and they gain strength and confidence and insight. And they actually cure themselves from this one little decision that they start off with, okay, we'll walk into the forest, and then another one and another one and another one, which keep piling up. Every time they choose the path of integrity, the path of what is right. And, for me, becoming a homeopath and doing pretty well and on my path to being hopefully a master of homeopathy, that's what does it. I have never taken a shortcut in homeopathy. I've always made the decision every time, take the long way, take the difficult way, take the path of integrity, take the path of nobility. If it's how to do approving, if it's how to, like, I'll give you an example. Seeing it's actually the noble adventures of Beryl and Carol, like I've written, many books about the noble gases, because I like them. But at some stage, when I'd written my first book and I approached a big homeopathic publisher and I said, will you publish it for me? And they said, no, we'll only publish all 7 together, all 7 noble gases in one book. And that would be the easy option. And they're the biggest publisher, so they would sell the most. And, I could just condense it down into one nice essency book of noble gases. And more people would read it without any doubt. It would be the easy option, and it would be the convenient option. And I didn't choose it. I'm writing these long noble gas books that take me 7 years each to write, but that's the choice from the beginning. And I really believe that, that's the path of Beryl and Carol, is the path to becoming a master homeopath, because it's just about making the difficult but right choice. And patients too. When patients go to a homeopath, they make a difficult choice. They are saying, instead of going conveniently to the doctor, getting antibiotics and tranquilizers, I'm going to pay more money, spend more time, go through aggravations, go through a more difficult choice, but it's the right thing to do. And because of that choice, they will be on the path to cure. So in that way, I believe that deep inside, the message is homeopathic, even though it doesn't say so on the cover. It's just about mobility.
I love it.
And there's a poem. I don't know if you reached the poem in the book.
No.
Because Carol's father writes her a poem at some stage. And the poem is all about that.
Is this
That's
one
what
on
the poem
page 73?
says.
Every active strength leads to another active strength?
That's the one, yeah.
It reminds me a little bit of the Tao Te Ching, maybe?
It should, I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has that rhythm to it, yes.
Yeah, beautiful. Everybody needs to read it. I'm really, it's my treat when I can take a break from research, and I love it. Love it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Happy.
So we just have a couple more minutes, and there are a few. I almost hate to open a door, but you kind of open the door in talking about taking the path that is the noble way, making the choices in homeopathy, you were talking about making the choice to use homeopathy as part of the healing journey. But I think, one of the challenges that we face, and I know you've talked about this in the 7R, which has become the 8R, which I've lost track of the R's. It's just, I just enjoy listening to it. But it is the fact that within homeopathy, shortcuts have evolved. And I think there is a way in which one of the challenges that we're seeing in our communities here in the United States is that the shortcut homeopathy has become a huge business. And so, polypharmacy, therapeutics, people who believe that self-treating is the only way to go because it's empowering. And the question, because I know we've talked about this a lot over the last couple of years, but the thing that I'm wondering about is we're finding that some of these cases are really hard to treat. You get used to dealing with the allopathic cases, but these cases where people come having taken, syphilinum 10M daily for 6 months, carcinosin 50M twice a week with it, plus, 4 doses of this and 3 doses of that. People arrive now to our clinic with spreadsheets of the remedies that they've taken. They need a spreadsheet to keep track.
The client's 3 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a kid that was not yet 2 years old, had 78 remedies. And the chief complaint was rough skin, right? What? Gosh, I don't even know the question to ask.
You already asked it. So try saying to a Sicilian, stop talking. You asked the question. Yeah, Camilla.
Camilla, what do you think?
Well, I've suddenly lately accumulated a ton of such patients from the US. I have the most peculiar clientele. I'm once a week on Skype, and I don't know where they come from, but I have a lot of people who've been doing all sorts of protocols and who come exactly with what you are describing to me. And they can't believe that they are getting better with just one remedy. But what I'm finding is that, you see, here in Tanzania, we have a lot of volunteers, and we have a lot of interns, and we have a lot of people who come, and they are also learning here, and we've trained our own team. So I tend to go to our clinics. I don't go to every clinic all the time, but every couple of months I go in and I tidy up the cases. So I see what's been given. I see the notes that are sometimes, I don't even want to talk about it. But what I've learned in these, how long have we been here? 12, 13 years, is how to, regardless you can take the case, how regardless you have the symptoms there that you need to prescribe for, and that I know what you are saying, and it can be challenging, but at the same time, it's not like you are. I haven't seen that the cases have been destroyed beyond recognition. You still have symptoms, you can prescribe from that totality that you've got. That's my experience.
Yeah, but the thing is, because I definitely, we can see symptoms. The question is the reaction. This is the thing that we're finding, is that they don't react as you would expect. And 6 months or a year down the road, you realize that the vitality is not, it's just not there. I don't know.
I remember cases like that, from New York, and particularly when I was practicing then, people coming 400 remedies daily and all that kind of thing. And I think it's quite individual. On one hand, it's exactly like you said, that the cases are destroyed and you can't recognize anything, or that doesn't work well because their energy has been fused, burnt out, and then they don't respond. And on the other hand, I know what Camilla is saying too, that because it reminds me of, let's say, patients that we have over here who are taking antiretrovirals, for 20 years, plus steroids, plus this, that, and the other, and but the symptoms will still peek through and you can still access it. I think in the cases you're talking about, it depends partly if they were lucky enough to receive the wrong remedies. Meaning,
yes.
If all the remedies they got are unrelated to the case, by good fortune, then they will remain something to work on the level of susceptibility. If they were close, they would change the case in ways that would get quite confusing. Yeah. So I think both extremes are true.
It's true. And you know what I'm thinking too is most of the cases where we find the real trouble, it's a lot more nosodes than just regular homeopathy. Yeah. Anyway, a conversation for us to keep having, because I'm so it's a great conversation to have.
Because it's a difficult one, because on one hand, we want to empower people to use homeopathy on a first aid level.
Yep.
And it's the most beautiful form of medicine, where a 5-year-old can give arnica to their friend that fell off the tree, like my kids did when they were little. I mean, it's brilliant. You're treating a concussion. A 5-year-old is treating a concussion. And that's a power and a beauty where, we can have a group of illiterate women who learned homeopathy by symbols and drawings, and they are saving lives when people are giving birth on a remote island. This can be done with homeopathy, right?
Yeah.
And on the other hand, then when we go to more deep, difficult, chronic treatment, where you need years and years of expertise and you need mileage, you need to have been a homeopath for a long time to be able to treat these cases. So you have, on one hand, you can have any idiot giving arnica, and then the other level is that you can't be trained enough to treat some of the cases. And then there's all the mix in between. So on one hand, yes, we want all the mums to be able to do that, yes. But on the other hand, we need to educate people. And this is where these kinds of podcasts are very, very important, is to be talking about these things, because people need to be informed when to stop, what is good homeopathy, and when do you book an appointment with a homeopath before 7 million doses of nosodes in gazillion potencies.
This is why you're my inspiration
I think
every day, Camilla.
What?
You sorry, Denise?
I said that's why Camilla is my inspiration every day. That
okay.
passion and that, that it's just that was a potent.
Mine too. Yeah. But I'll say that, the education is quite simple, although you said there are many shades of gray between that. I think the message that has to go out from all the homeopaths who are encouraging moms and encouraging people to prescribe and do things is just 2 words, acute and chronic. Yeah. They have to understand that. They have to learn what the difference is, and it's to keep it simple and not complicate. Acute, yes. Chronic, no. Professional. That's a simple message that has to go out.
I love it. Folks, I'm going to run because I've got to go and teach students the difference between acute and chronic disease, which is
and I've got to go and play backgammon. It's a time. So
thank you for thanks for coming to visit with us.
Thanks,
it has been just amazing.
Thank you for having us. It's really it's so nice to see you too.
Yeah.
Good to see.
And next time you'll come here. We want you in Tanzania, and bring a few students with you. Bring 5 students with you. Come, we'll take you to the Maasai. We'll have a fantastic time, and you will see the homeopathy at a grassroots level, and amazing
homeopathy the way God meant it to be. Because we practice a very special kind of homeopathy here. It's called bullshit-free homeopathy. And it's, it's very down to earth. It's very practical. It's the way Lippe and Herring would have practiced. And you see it all the time, and the results are amazing. So you really have to grab a few students and come over. We'll do your special.
Sure. And, we're doing our best with all the grandchildren of Jeremy to bring the no bullshit homeopathy to the rest of the world. So stripping it down to the basics.
Thank you for that. Yes. Thank you for all your good work. You are really doing such great work in the United States. It's a real joy to see how your school is doing, and how you're like a model, like a role model to all the schools. It's very good to see.
You are the Beryl and Carol of USA homeopathy.
Now that's a compliment.
Wait, hang on.
That is a compliment.
Who's Beryl and who's Carol?
I'll let you work it out.
Now that one's up for debate.
Okay.
So we will definitely come. I think that, Tina has been on me saying, when are you coming? So, once Tina puts her mind to something, you can't say no anymore. So that's what's going to make it happen.
Exactly.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Okay. See you. Take care.
Yeah.
Lots of love.
Bye.
Pretty excited. First of all, because we get to hang out, but also we haven't had guests on our podcast. Our podcast has been sort of a rolling conversation about all the things in homeopathy that people have, maybe need a little more information about, or things that people can let go of. And it's called Strange, Rare, and Peculiar. So it's been a lot of fun. I think, is this our 11th episode, maybe?
Oh, 12.
Something like that.
Something. Whatever.
Yeah, and who's your audience?
No one listens. No, we don't have an audience.
We're not sure. We made it to the top 100 on Spotify in our category, and I'm not sure there's anyone else in our category. So
Philadelphia homeopaths?
Yeah,
I think so.
It might be a really narrow slice of the population.
It's quite nice, actually, because I learned lots of things about Denise as we're sitting and talking to ourselves. But it sometimes takes what you think is going to be an audience to actually, say the stuff. So it's good.
Yeah.
So, we'll imagine there's an audience.
Yes. Yeah. Feedback has actually been really nice. We're pretty excited about that. And we're having fun, which is most important, because if we weren't having fun, we probably wouldn't do it.